Hello guys, today we're going to have a look at converting a Ford TW35 made by Universal Hobbies into a radio controlled tractor. This conversion will be a lot trickier than the CQ models because there's just not the same amount of space under the model. It's a little bit more realistic, so it's going to require a lot more cutting out to fit in, say, a drive motor. We need to cut a big space out at the bottom of the model here to fit that in, and also to fit a steering servo in, but luckily enough the bonnet of the model covers most of the front of the model anyway. The steering shouldn't be too hard to do because there was already a mechanism for turning the steering wheel in here when the wheels of the model were changed, but I already broke that, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't able to move its full range of movement because the little bar here would hit on the top. Should be fairly simple to connect the steering rack to a servo once we get it apart, but getting this model apart will be a little bit tricky. The Universal Hobbies models don't come apart as easily as the CQ models do, so this is going to take a little bit of work. The wheels, you just kind of have to pry them off, pull them apart, which is a little bit difficult to do without damaging the wheels. So to get the wheels off, I applied a kind of constant pressure pulling them apart, and also twisted the wheels on either side in opposite directions to get them to kind of come loose from the splines here. So yeah, it takes quite a bit of force to get the wheels off, so you don't want to be too delicate with it or you probably won't be able to get them off. So that's the wheels apart, and we can see now we have pretty much one standard wheel. So if you just wanted to convert your model to have single rear wheels, that wouldn't be too difficult. You could just cut the axle and put the two single wheels back on. This is more like a spacer wheel. I'm planning to upgrade the tyres on the back of this. I think these tyres are pretty skinny, and I'd much prefer a wider tyre with slightly better traction from the rubber like you get from the CQ tyres. The only thing is the rear wheel of this model is about the size of a front tyre on a modern tractor. Here's the front of the Massey 8680, and you can see the rear wheel of the Ford is about the same size as the front wheel of that. So if you hold them up to it and align the axles, it actually looks like a pretty decent tyre on the Ford there. So I'm going to try and order tyres similar to this, or if I can't get them, I'll buy a donor Massey 8680. The tyres on the Massey have great treads on them, so they're a very nice tyre, and I think it would look much better on the Ford than the original tyres did. I think the only part that comes off easily on a Universal Hobbies model is the cab, so we'll take that off and put it to one side so that it doesn't get damaged. Well, I had been hoping to get the cab off, but it looks like to get the cab past this bump here we'd have to remove the bonnet. Now, I've removed the bonnet on the Ford 7810 before, and you had to pry the bonnet off, so I'm hoping that this will be the same and that I don't damage the model trying to get the bonnet off. I don't want to scratch the paintwork, so over the end of the screwdriver I just put a little bit of foam packaging to try and save the bit of the paintwork, and I'm just going to try and pry up the bonnet here nice and gently. Okay, I had to do it off camera. It was a little bit tricky, but it is the same as the other model. So you can see there are two guide holes that fit into these two pins here, and that's how you get the bonnet off. So it just goes back on like that, but they probably had it glued in place or something like that. But once you have it broken free, you can just take it off very easily. And there are a couple of little scratches there where I hit it with the screwdriver, but you know, this is how you get it off. And we've also exposed a screw up here, so we couldn't have taken the cab off before this. So take that screw out. And the cap should come off now. There we go. That's the cap off. And I don't want to lose these screws, so I'll screw them back into the threaded holes on the side of the model. Next part, fairly straightforward. Screw here. I think it's just going to let off the weight block, or I assume it's a weight block. There's a screw here, so maybe I'll take this screw out first. We'll take the links off next. There's a screw holding on the cab there, so you have to pry this little piece of plastic up from on top of the screw. So you can see it has a little pin that fits into the two holes, or there's two little pins that fit into the two holes either side of the screw there. So you just have to pry that off, and that exposes the screw. I think you just need to pry the steering column off nice and gently, because it is holding in the cab. There you go. Oh, well, that took the steering wheel off. The steering wheel is generally just like a little hollow tube that sits on the top of the little shaft that joins to the front wheels. And there you go. You can probably disconnect this from probably disconnect that whole column from the rest of the body, but that's that part off as well. It took me a little while to figure this out, but on the side of the tractor here there's a little plate, and when you pry the plate up you find the last screw that's holding the frame together. So hopefully it'll just fall apart when we have this off. And by fall apart I mean be hard to get apart. After you take the screw out, the last piece holding it in is this front little piece that goes on just ahead of the wheels, and what you have to do is push that down and kind of jiggle it forward a little bit. It's a little bit tight, but it's not too hard to push forward. And then when you do that, the whole model just falls apart then. You have lots of little pieces of the steering mechanism, so it probably went something like that when you turn the wheels, turn the steering wheel. But obviously don't want that stuff anymore. Just going to replace all that with a servo. And as to the steering, I had already broken this piece off. The steering wasn't great on this model, and I accidentally broke that off while I was just trying to see how far the wheels could actually turn. So that is how you take the Universal Hobbies TW35 apart. It's a little bit tricky, but all Universal Hobbies models are pretty tricky to get apart. And as you can see, that is a lot harder to hide servos in than the CQ models, which are big squares of space. So to fit the motor and the steering servo to this, I'm going to have to cut quite a lot of this chassis apart. Well, that's how you take that model apart. If you found this type of video useful, make sure and hit the like button or let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can also post them in the comments or post them in the forum and I'll try and answer them. I'll probably do another video with the Ford 7810 just to show how you take a different Universal Hobbies model apart. It's pretty much the same idea. So, you know, if you watch a couple of these videos, you'll probably start to get an idea of where the screws are hidden. Like, you can kind of spot the ones under the cab, stuff like that. And the bonnet that just was pried up, that was the same on the other model. So probably they do similar enough things on each of their models. They probably keep the build procedure similar enough. And a lot of things are glued together. It's not like CQ models where pretty much everything is screwed together. That's everything for today, so thanks very much for watching.